Hi everyone. So I'm just going to quickly round off some points from yesterday's lively opposition to both the motion for summary judgment and motion for judgment on the pleadings, and today's Jonesworks opposition for Abel's motion for conditional summary judgment. We start with lively, and I'll just talk about both the documents together because they're pretty similar. If there's just some differences, I will point that out. But basically, it was the first half of it was just all snark and PR. There was a lot of alluding to certain things, but then redacting it. Like even the title, even one of the subheadings had a redaction in it as well, which was just it's like, okay. I think I spent 4 hours between the two videos recording yesterday, and at least 50% of that time was me saying the words redacted. It is the nature of what it is. At this point, there are redactions. Hopefully we will get to see what's under those redactions at some point in time. But it did feel very PR driven. There was a whole thing as well. Like, she said that Jamie Heath was making aspersions about her gender and disparaging her because he said that she would be birthed into the role. I mean, and because of the use of the word birthed, apparently that's disparaging because she's a female. I mean, it was just bullshit like that, where most people who have common sense would sit there being lively. Oh, no, this is disparaging. And by the way, he had that thought process in California, so that therefore ties this to California. And it was like almost as ridiculous as her second amended was, someone had a ping on their mobile phone from like an Eastern timeline, an Eastern time zone. And it's like, are you serious? I think someone actually in the comments was like, Jamie, he farted in California, and that would, and like, if that was the case, Lively would have thrown that in as well to say, look, see, California law applies. And you know what? After laughing, I actually couldn't disagree, because it was like, oh, they plotted against me in California. They paid for services to retaliate against me in California. It's like, girl, come on. So I got frustrated, and it was on par with the same level of ridiculousness as her other filings in multiple dockets, by the way, regarding jurisdictional issues and application of law. We had contradictions. That was insane. There were multiple times I got really annoyed because she was contradicting herself. In the motion for summary judgment, I think it's motion for summary judgment, I'm pretty sure. She actually made this big fuss over, Wayfarer, they refused to to have harassment training, etc., etc. But then later on conceded, Wayfarer did have, it's admitted that Wayfarer had harassment training. So what are you talking about? She also said they didn't have a HR policy in place. Like, they only had their internal HR, so everything was suppressed. They had no external, HR, but that's not true as well. We know that's not true. There was a hotline that was provided on the call sheets, which was distributed to all the cast and crew, which went to a third party, I believe a law firm, who, and that was specifically for anyone Castle crew to report any concerns. That hotline was there. Is there any evidence Blake Lively even attempted it? No. And she also says, that Wayfarer effectively blocked her ability to report concerns. Well, that's not true, because she admittedly went to Sony. She could have gone to SAG-AFTRA. She could have gone to her husband, one of the biggest names in Hollywood. She could have gone to WME. But she didn't even try Wayfarer's HR. I mean, Wayfarer did try to address her claims, but, she also alleged as well, I mean, the claims suddenly get wilder. It's like she had a real vendetta against Jamie Heath. And suddenly she has gone from, I was having body makeup removed in my trailer and Jamie Heath walked in, to Jamie Heath walked into my trailer whilst I was topless. So that's something that she's never alleged that before, that she was completely topless. And then he said, her claims have shifted from, he made eye contact, to he stared at my body. So, and I'm sitting reading this thinking, what is she talking about? Because these are allegations she has never made before, and she has kind of made them sound even worse than they already did. So, there's that. What else was there? We had Alex Sachs. Alex Sachs was apparently in the thick of all this, got shouted at a couple of times, apparently, and just lost her mind. Jenny Slate never had her mind. She took offense to everything, felt uncomfortable literally with nothing. She didn't like the fact that I haven't done it in a video yet, but I have seen that there is a deposition excerpt from Justin Baldoni where he talks about Jenny Slate, and she was uncomfortable because Jamie Heath increased or paid something to do with a house or a rental property, got her a property that was safer for her and her young child, paid a lot of money to help her to do this, made a comment that we try to prioritize, mums and young families, or something to that effect, and that made Jenny Slate uncomfortable. I mean, why are people so fragile? I don't understand why that would never make me uncomfortable. And certainly if someone had gone out of their way and thrown money at a problem to make my child feel safe, I would not be so fickle, petty, and bloody minded as that. I actually think that is quite shameful behaviour. Another thing she took issue with was Justin Baldoni. He would go out and interact with the fans who were kind of, around in the area during production. And Jenny Slate didn't like this because she thought it would be expected of her, and she says she's a private person, but to me, all I'm hearing is she doesn't like her fans, if she has any. So apparently she's it seems like she's insinuating that she's kind of above all of that, and seems quite resentful for no reason that I can see, to people like Justin Baldoni who do actually go and make the time and just be a normal person and go and thank people who are supporting him. So my assessment of Jenny Slate was she is an entirely unlikable and insufferable person. I really don't like her. I didn't think much of her acting anyway, but if she's going to be so bitchy about silly petty things, then I really don't have time to try and like this person. Alex Sachs, I've already kind of glossed over her a few times in other videos as well. Like, she is an opportunist, in my opinion. She has previously taken advantage and leveraged another person she collaborated with on the Florida project, actually, Andrew Duncan, when he was falsely accused. Sorry, when he was accused, I don't know, I haven't looked into whether it was false or not, but certainly when he was accused of sexual harassment, after sitting on it for long enough, she decided to speak up at an opportune moment, in which she was able to take over the production company he co-founded. So yeah, she has that production company. She was in on this from the start. Like, she was one of the first people that Justin spoke to when he was optioning the book. It's quite disappointing to see her get, like, I mean, he may have had outbursts, but obviously now we know the extent of what he was dealing with Blake Lively. I'm sure he got frustrated and had human moments. Nothing that a simple sit down and an apology would not have fixed, but people just have to go balls to the wall on this crap. I'm sure she was incentivized as well by Blake Lively at some point. I think I've read somewhere that, someone had a conversation with her and that was it then. She was never going to speak to Wayfarer again. And it seems strange to me that people can, like Colleen Hoover and Alex Sachs, can be longtime friends with someone, get to know them, and then be like, nah. Also, Blake Lively admitted that she had been told by Liz Plank, who finally made an appearance. She had been told by Liz Plank of Justin Baldoni's behaviour before she took on the role of Lily Bloom. So that came up. Now, I knew Liz Plank was in the thick of this. I've done so much content on Liz Plank. She has a pre-existing friendship with Ryan Reynolds. She has worked with Ryan Reynolds on Welcome to Wrexham. And we know that she's like, there are red carpet photos of Liz Plank with Blake Lively. So we knew that was there. However, she also, I mean, Liz Plank was airing all these concerns, allegedly, to Blake Lively about what Justin Baldoni was like, but Liz Plank seemed quite content to continue working with him on the Man Enough podcast. The more I dig into it, the more evidence that Blake Lively puts on the docket, which he thinks helps her, the more I think this has been a long-term kind of conspiracy to take over this film, take over the franchise. That's my opinion. I didn't think much of either of her oppositions as far as, she fought off the allegations. I mean, at the end of the day, there is still the video evidence there to be seen. We know Justin Baldoni has submitted the actual, the video footage of the behind the scenes of the filming of the birth scene. That should put to bed, because Lively's allegations are she was nearly nude and only had a tiny thin piece of fabric. Baldoni and Adam Monshine, the actual actor who was playing the OBGYN, are both saying no, she had a hospital gown, she had a fake pregnancy bump, and she was wearing shorts, and in fact she was able to wear whatever she wanted to wear. So I'm not convinced. I've always believed that, well, if they're saying she was wearing black pants and shorts or whatever, there will be video footage. Well, no, it's there. It just needs to be unsealed. I'm not sure if that's the CD or no, it's not. It needs to be unsealed. But Wayfarer included it in their motion for summary judgment, so I very much believe that, as I've said before, they will not include stuff that does not actually support them. There is a world of difference in the versions of events between what Lively says happened in that filming scene and what Wayfarer say. So the video footage should put to bed what actually happened. And I'm telling you now, if Lively is proven, as I'm expecting to be the case, that she lied about that, then that should destroy the rest of the claims. If she's telling the truth, I have an open mind going forward that maybe some of the things that she's saying, maybe there's some truth to them, but that's the one thing for me, because I initially my first red flag with all of this when she filed her complaint, her CRD in the New York Times, was she referred to Adam Monshine as not being an actor, and I know fine well he is. So that was the first problem I had with what she was saying. What else? I mean, there's a lot about the business side of things, with some boring stuff, tedious stuff, but it's stuff that's important because it goes to the breach of contract claims, etc. In the motion for judgment on the pleadings, she did not actually reference the fact that she did not sign her ACTA loan-out agreement. She did in the motion for summary judgment, but she did make one really good point in that Wayfarer had previously relied on the ACTA loan-out agreement. So they can't now say, well, it's null and void because you never signed it. I do agree with that because, and I've said this before, everyone did their performance, so there was implied agreement, and what I mean by that is, Lively acted her part, and Wayfarer got a successful film. Wayfarer paid Lively for her services, so they both kept up their ends of the bargain insofar as that. What else? I think that's kind of like the most part of it, really, of that bit. Jonesworks. So most of it, I'm actually going to say I thought was reasonably good arguments from Stephanie Jones. I will be giving credit where credit is due, regardless of what side it comes from. But she made reasonable points. She did exactly what I said was going to happen when I read Jamie Heath's deposition transcript, where he specifically said that Stephanie Jones was not part of the team. I said, oh, she's going to use that. She is going to categorically point and say, look, Wayfarer themselves say that I was not part of this. I was not involved. And I would advise my client to do the same thing. That's strategic. It is not for Stephanie Jones to, people will say, oh yeah, but but clearly she was, so because of this, and this, maybe, and I don't disagree with that. However, it is not Stephanie Jones's responsibility to explain what Jamie Heath meant. All she needs is the line from him that she wasn't involved, she was not part of the team, and she can just keep throwing that at every allegation now going forward where there's an insinuation that she was part of it. Like, no, Jamie Heath says I wasn't. So, see here, he said it under sworn testimony too. So, and she's right, and it's a good move. In this document, she only made reference to it once, but it was entirely predictable she was going to do that, because I would have had a lot to say about her counsel if she had not. And I do know her counsel are quite good counsel. She also made reference to the fact that some of the stuff that was she wasn't copied in on everything, and some stuff like the scenario planning document that was emailed to Jen Abel's email, which was part of her new business that she was leaving Jonesworks to set up. So the scenario plan document was actually was sent by Melissa Nathan to Jen Abel at her RWA Communications email, not her Jonesworks email, which that is again quite a strong argument when Stephanie Jones's arguments are she was doing all of this without my knowledge, my consent. She was not acting as part of as a Jonesworks employee. That is a pretty good and strong argument to make. Although she rightly did point out that Jonesworks is not referenced on the scope, not the scope, sorry, on the scenario planning document, it does reference Jen Abel. Now, one of the things I countered with there was Jen Abel is the named person at Jonesworks, so it doesn't need to be expressly stated that, you know, Jonesworks does not need to be expressly in that document. And the reason I pointed to that specifically is because in the scope of work document, which is a separate document sent like about a few days before, Jonesworks is front and center of that document by tag. They talk repeatedly about working with Jonesworks, supporting Jonesworks, aligning with Jonesworks. So they already did that in the scope of work document. So when it comes to the scenario planning document, the Stephanie Jones's issue is, well, it doesn't mention me. I don't see that it needs to, because Jen Abel was the named person who was overseeing both Baldoni and Wayfarer's accounts. So I thought it was good enough, really. I didn't find that such a strong argument. Is there anything else? Not particularly. There were moments where it was a bit, that I was like, oh yeah, no, I don't agree with that. Stephanie Jones did know some stuff was going on, because I haven't read it yet, but I've seen actually that in one of the exhibits there's a message between Jen Abel, Stephanie Jones, message thread going through them where they're talking about bringing on counsel, and Stephanie Jones is actually saying, don't get Brian Friedman. She recommends Marty Singer, which I don't think would have been the right choice. However, so she is aware that things were that bad enough that that attorneys were being sought. We also had I did read an attachment. I didn't realize, because Lauren had sent a little clip of herself reading this a couple of days ago to me and Cassidy, and we had a bit of a giggle over it. I didn't realize it was the same document. It was the same exhibit, but someone said to me, "Oh, you need to check this out." So I did, and when I read through it, like, there's wildly, Stephanie Jones is alleging that Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, worked with Melissa Nathan to smear her, Stephanie Jones. So we've now got smear campaigns coming everywhere. And this is just getting wild now with all the big names that are being thrown around. Yeah, like, who's next? So far, when it comes to big names, we have had Hugh Jackman, Taylor Swift, Bradley Cooper, Gigi Hadid, Rebel Wilson, and now Dwayne Johnson. I'm sure there are probably more, but I think I said in the video, it feels like it's a pissing contest at this point. Who can throw in the biggest name? But the amount of smear campaigns that are being attributed to Brian Friedman and Melissa Nathan at this point is just getting silly. Oh, that was that was an important point as well. So I actually pulled up an old X account. Not an old X account, an old X post back from April, where I actually looked at Stephanie Jones's original complaint against Jen Abel and Wayfarer back in December. And in that, she actually talks about the fact that, in 2022, she thought Melissa Nathan's work was so good. She was on the cusp of hiring her. And Melissa Nathan then kind of, for whatever reason, and it doesn't go into it, rejected the job offer. Then in the next paragraph, just Stephanie Jones herself admits, like, oh, well, by the next year, I didn't like Melissa Nathan's way of working, and admits that she interfered with a mutual client and vowed never to work with Melissa Nathan again. So, and I think I made the point, like, because Stephanie Jones is very much hammering on the line, and I don't like, this is one thing I really don't like, actually. Well, I advise not to hire Melissa Nathan because of her reputation, right? Firstly, there is beef. There exists the existing beef between Melissa Nathan and Stephanie Jones, and I think that Stephanie Jones has had her nose put out of joint because she was rejected by Melissa Nathan, and openly admitted that she has already interfered with a business contact. But also, I don't love the fact that she's like, well, you all went against my advice, so, you can't now sue me for indemnity. That's not how that works, right? Because Jen Abel was still working for her, and there is evidence that she did. There's evidence that there was some stuff that was being done, that being communicated at least, where Stephanie Jones wasn't in the loop. But Stephanie Jones doesn't always need to be in the loop because Jen Abel is a senior person overseeing those accounts specifically. So they don't need to be emailing Stephanie Jones into absolutely everything. Can you imagine the volume of emails Stephanie Jones would get for each and every client, for each and every employee that she has dealing with various accounts? It's ridiculous. So, and that's not commonly how businesses are run. People who are in senior positions generally have some kind of autonomy, and then there are, like, periodical kind of, maybe like a supervision meeting, or like the highest person in the chain gets called in when they need advice or approval for something, but they're not included in absolutely every piece of communication. And I was a bit frustrated with Stephanie Jones saying, well, you hired Wayfarer hired Melissa Nathan, they did it against my will, against my desires. Wayfarer are the ones paying for the crisis PR. Now, Stephanie Jones knew enough about crisis PR that she recommended some PR firms. So she knew enough that crisis PR was needed and warranted. She recommended some crisis PR companies. She did not recommend Melissa Nathan or Tag. Fine. But when Wayfarer is picking up the bill, they have a right of say. It should only be recommendations and suggestions that come from Stephanie Jones. So the fact that she's so bent out of shape because Wayfarer decided to hire someone that she did not approve or like, and has such a personal grudge with, that she herself put in her own law, her own court filing about this grudge. To me, I don't find that a good argument at all. She also complains that she didn't approve or have anything to do with the hiring of Jed Wallace, which I don't see as relevant. She complains that she wasn't copied in on anything. Jed Wallace never spoke to her. Again, why would he? Jen Abel is the point of contact. So that's my summary. Okay, so I hope that is helpful to everyone. If you've got any questions, I do drop them in the comments, and I will respond as soon as I can. And I will try and get on with going through some of the exhibits.